You're listening to Stand Out, Get Noticed, episode 238. Hi there, Rockstar, and welcome to Stand Out, Get Noticed. I'm your host, Christina Canters, speaker, coach, and founder of The C Method, where I'm all about helping high-performing professionals and business leaders to build powerful communication skills. You can learn more at thecmethod.com. Now, have you ever experienced anxiety? You know, the pounding in your chest, maybe churning in your stomach, maybe a sense of impending doom. Maybe it comes up for you in certain situations, or maybe it's something you live with most days. Whatever the case, in today's podcast, we are exploring how to beat your anxiety for good. And this is an episode that I'm really excited about because I think, we all deal with a degree of anxiety at some point in our lives. I myself experienced some anxiety this week. Aaron, my lovely husband, and I purchased our very first home. And that, I got to say, brought up all sorts of anxious feelings for me. We went to an auction on Sunday. We bid there, and then it was a couple of nail-biting days, but, leading up to signing the contract and seeing if the vendor was accepting our offer and that sort of thing. But we got it all signed off and it's all official. We are officially homeowners. So we're very excited. But this was a big step for us, a very proud one as well, but very big step. So I have been dealing with those feelings of anxiety this week. So I'm very excited to introduce you to my very special guest, Sam Taylor from the Nurture Project, who will be guiding us through what anxiety is, why we have it, and how we can learn to overcome it or at least minimize it effectively. So Sam Taylor is a wellness specialist. She's a speaker, and she specializes in helping women to live lives free from stress and anxiety. And what I love about Samantha is that she has a very holistic approach to her work. So she understands how mind and body need to work together to overcome anxiety. And she believes that, we all deserve to feel strong and to feel in charge of our lives. So she's not about, popping a pill to get rid of something. She has that holistic approach. So you can learn more about Sam at thenurtureproject.com. And she has an online program where she helps women to develop life skills of, exercise, nutrition, meditation, and other areas as well, other pillars, so that they can overcome anxiety. In today's conversation, Sam explores with us, why we have anxiety, where it comes from, and she takes us through each of those 5 pillars to help us with our anxiety. So even if you experience anxiety, on a small level, maybe it's just when public speaking, or if you experience anxiety, more frequently or quite strongly, then this is going to be a great episode for you to listen to. So my first question to Sam was, what is your definition of anxiety? What is it exactly, and how do we know that we have anxiety? Here's Sam Taylor.
A lot of people talk about anxiety and they say, I feel really anxious and I've got anxiety. So what a lot of people mean is that they're a bit stressed. Stress and anxiety are different things. Right. Anxiety is that feeling of a churning stomach, pressure on your chest, racing thoughts. There's this overwhelming feeling of impending doom, headaches, it's insomnia. And although some feelings of anxiety are normal, it's when that anxiety doesn't go away, when it's there for no apparent reason. That's when someone could be considered to have anxiety.
Right. So it sounds like it's a very physical symptom, like it's a physical reaction.
It's a physical and a mental thing together. And
right.
There are 6 different types of anxiety. Okay. So there's not just the one thing. I think a lot of people think of anxiety as being either social anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder, but there are lots of other types of anxiety as well.
Okay. What are the other types?
So there's PTSD,
right.
There are phobias, agoraphobia as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what generally causes anxiety?
So there are lots of different causes of anxiety. There isn't just one thing that causes it. So we've got can be a genetic predisposition to anxiety. And there are certainly some chemical changes in the brain that happen once somebody has developed anxiety. But generally, those aren't the causes. So there are many, many other causes. It can be learned behavior. It can be a traumatic experience. It can be, and one of the main causes of anxiety is actually chronic stress over time. So that's a number one indicator that someone's going to develop anxiety is actually chronic stress over time. So, for example, if you've got, financial troubles or, an unhappy marriage or a job where you don't feel valued or appreciated, and you're experiencing that stress for around 10 months is kind of what the current research shows, then there's a good chance you could develop anxiety from that.
Right.
So I think a lot of people sort of think, oh, maybe it's a genetic thing or it's in my genes or it's in my DNA, but it's not. It's a lot of it is actually in the way that we live.
Yeah, absolutely. I meet a lot of people who get really anxious about public speaking, right? So like if they've got a presentation coming up, they feel that impending doom of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Is that like a dangerous type of anxiety, or is that more of your everyday type of anxiety?
That's a really common anxiety. And I've heard recently that fear of public speaking is actually a fear of rejection. And that's where that comes from. It's that idea that, people are going to reject you as you stand up there.
Yeah. So I guess that that means if you are, if you're anxious around public speaking, chances are you're anxious in other areas of your life if you have that same fear of rejection. Yeah. In other different areas.
Yeah, but public speaking definitely brings it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it like heightens everything. So my understanding is that you have experienced some anxiety in your life.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing, what that looked like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I've had anxiety my whole life. Even as a child I remember 6-7 years old, having that churning feeling in my stomach, real stomach pains. My parents were constantly taking me to the doctor, thinking that maybe I had some sort of stomach bug or gastro, but they could never find anything wrong with me.
Can I ask what was creating that? Did you know at the time?
Well, my parents were divorcing at the time, and their relationship wasn't going very well. And I think I heard a lot of things, and not that I'm blaming my parents. Sorry, Mum, if you're listening. But yeah, I think it did have an impact on me. And my anxiety developing coincided with that, so there's a chance that had something to do with it. I haven't delved too deeply into it. It was only, and then so it carried on these feelings of anxiety throughout my childhood, my teenage years, and then eventually in my 20s, I was finally diagnosed with anxiety. And I was put on, the doctors explained to me that I had a chemical imbalance in my brain that was causing me to feel the way that I felt, and that if I took this medication, it would correct that imbalance and I would feel better.
So they prescribed you
So they prescribed
medicine.
me SSRI antidepressant medication. So one type of that, sertraline, it's called. And so I started to take that, and after about 3 weeks, I started to feel a little bit better. But at that point, I was also really struggling with the side effects from the antidepressants. So for me, that was weight gain, insomnia, difficulty achieving orgasm, and the night sweats. So the night sweats were so bad that I had to sleep with 3 towels on top of me and 3 towels underneath me. Wow. And I would take them off layer by layer throughout the night as I soaked them in sweat.
Wow.
Which, on the plus side meant that side effect of difficulty achieving orgasm, not a problem, because there was no way anyone was going to come anywhere near me, dripping as I was in my own bodily fluids.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
So that was my first experience of SSRI, antidepressant medication. And then, over the next 6 years or so, we sort of cycled through a whole heap of other ones. So, Effexor and Valdoxan and, a whole heap of them. And I had, Pristiq, which gave me brain zaps, just combinations of different ones, and nothing worked. Despite the fact that I was doing everything that the culture tells us to do, which is go to the doctor, take the meds, I was still in a lot of mental anguish. But
your anxiety had subsided somewhat?
No. So it's still, by this point, I had anxiety, but I also had depression. By this time I'm married, I've got 2 young children, and we were on a family holiday, and I found myself awake after everyone else had gone to sleep, which is a really common side effect, a really common symptom of anxiety and depression. And I just found myself thinking I can't live with the pain of being here anymore. And so I started to write goodbye notes to my daughters and to my husband. And, although I didn't end up going through with what I was planning to do that night, it was the moment that I realized that something had to change and that I was not managing my anxiety, which had turned into depression. So not long after that, I began to do my research, and I wanted to understand why I felt the way that I felt. And I wanted to understand why, as a society, we are getting more and more anxious and more stressed. We've got serious cases of anxiety and depression, every year, rising every year.
Do you know how many?
Well, at the moment, there are 2.6 million people in Australia with a diagnosed anxiety condition.
Yeah.
But, only 35% of people with anxiety get a diagnosis
for
it. So that figure is more like 7.4 million, something like that. My maths is not good on the fly.
I'm sure there'd be lots of people who just ignore it and go, oh, it's fine, or it's just a stressful period at work and that's it and I'll get over it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people with anxiety just think that everybody else feels like that.
That it's normal.
And that it's normal. Have you ever heard the 19th century experiment of the frog in boiling water?
It tried to... Oh, no. Oh, wait. Let me guess.
Yeah.
They put the frog in cold water, and as they boiled it, the frog didn't jump out because it didn't realize it was being boiled?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the premise, so if you put a frog straight into boiling water, it'll jump straight back out. But if you put a frog into cold water and you gradually heat the water over time, the frog will boil to death. And the hypothesis is that the frog is, because the water's heated so gently, the frog doesn't realize that the water's getting warmer, and so he boils to death. And that is a horrible experiment, but also a really good metaphor of how stress affects us.
Right, because it starts small.
It starts small. Those people who don't realize that they're stressed or don't realize that they've got anxiety, they're the frog in the water and the temperature's rising,
And what's normal? What's then a sign of when it all, when they come to realize, what's the turning point for a lot of people?
Well, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people with anxiety, and the vast majority of them only realize that they've got anxiety once something happens. So they have an accident, or they, develop IBS or chronic back pain, or they have a skin condition that doesn't clear up. Something happens which acts as a circuit breaker. And then they start to deal with that, and then they start to look at other aspects of their life, and then they look back in history and they go, wow, I have had anxiety all this time and I didn't know.
It's like being in a bad relationship.
Yeah.
Like you don't know until you're out of it, and then you look back and you go, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Like that was some serious bad stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really important for people to just be aware that they may not know that they have anxiety, and actually one of the best things to do is take a test.
Yeah.
Get yourself checked. There are so many online tests that you can do for free that are self-administered, that are the same tests that doctors use to assess the severity of someone's anxiety. There's one on my website. It's a free one. 10 questions, 2 minutes. It's worth
All right,
doing.
We'll link up your website so people can go do that test if they want to.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that you did your research, you learned what helped you, and that's now why you help other women to do it as well.
Yes, exactly. So I started to research all the ways that you can help to get rid of anxiety without taking medication. Not that I'm anti-medication. I think it's definitely got its place. It helped me for a little while there, but I think there's also an awful lot other things that we could be doing
Yeah. So what are the key areas that you found to be really important to, key components to helping people to overcome their anxiety?
So the first thing for me that I started to do was exercise. And I know that's not going to be the first choice for everybody, but that really helped me. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that exercise is going for a brief 10, 15-minute walk is as effective as taking an anti-anxiety pill.
Amazing.
So, and it lasts for hours. So it's definitely something to try. Obviously, the longer you do it for and you develop a regular exercise practice, the better, the better it is for you. People who exercise regularly are less likely to develop anxiety.
I blame so I shouldn't blame winter, but in winter I tend to exercise less because it's cold, it's dark, I want to be at home, and that's when I actually find my mental state starts to, like, it's not as strong. I start to get a little bit, I don't want to say depressed because it's definitely not depression, but I feel a lot more down, and I attribute a lot of that to not exercising as much.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same as you. Like I like the warm weather. I don't like going outside, and I stop running in the winter because just my hands get too cold.
Yeah.
But I've bought a few weights and I have those in the living room. And I actually really love getting up in the morning and sticking on my favorite TV show and just lifting some weights while I watch it. So,
oh, nice. Okay.
That's
tip.
something. Yeah.
So what else is key?
So there's exercise, meditation. Meditation, I've listened to a couple of podcasts where you've mentioned meditation before.
Yes, we've done some episodes about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone listening, if you haven't heard those, go back and listen to those.
Yeah. So meditation is huge. Meditation actually changes the physical structure of your brain. It causes the parts of your brain responsible for empathy and perspective taking to get bigger, and it causes the parts of your brain responsible for fear and the fight or flight response to get smaller, like actually physically smaller. That's really important for people with anxiety because it shows that through meditation we can actually make some real changes, and that's what meditation does. It also helps you to learn gratitude. It helps you to recognize negative thought patterns that are going on in your head. Meditation is a fantastic practice for anyone with anxiety.
Okay. Awesome. Tick that one off.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
So we then got nutrition. Nutrition, maybe a lot of people don't know that there's a link to a deficiency in quite a lot of nutrients and anxiety. So there are certain nutrients that we need to make sure that we're getting enough of so that we can combat anxiety. Nutrients such as selenium, antioxidants, B vitamins, and folate, zinc, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids.
Right.
So we need to make sure we're getting enough of those. And the way to get enough of those is to eat a wholesome diet. So there are lots of different wholesome diets, but essentially that's a diet that is rich in a variety of fruits and vegetables, and then checking your proteins as well, making sure that you're eating leaner proteins and more fish, and then including nuts and seeds as well into your diet.
Awesome.
And what you don't eat is as important as what you do eat. So avoiding processed foods, fatty foods, alcohol, sugar.
Right.
As much as possible.
So they're going to actually increase your anxiety, the more of that you eat.
Yeah, those things are foods to avoid for sure.
Right. So I guess, if we're at work and we're feeling stressed and we get a bag of chips or something to soothe us, it's actually not very soothing at all. Or a block of chocolate.
Yeah, look, there's nothing. I mean, dark chocolate's not bad. Mm-hmm. Dark chocolate's okay. The white chocolate and that really sugary milk chocolate, probably not so much, but. Yeah, nothing wrong with a couple of squares of dark chocolate. I love that.
Good. We've got your seal of approval. I like that.
Yeah. And then, so where have we got to? We've exercise, nutrition, meditation. We'll touch on sleep briefly.
Okay.
So sleep is essential for your mental health, for your physical and your mental health. I think it's something like, it's a huge percentage. It's something crazy like, a third of the population just doesn't get enough sleep or wakes up tired every day. So what we focus on at the Nurture Project is creating really healthy sleep routines and sleep habits, sleep hygiene.
Can you explain what sleep hygiene is?
So it's for us, it's tips and tricks, things to do around sleeping. I think a lot of people, I was just talking about this morning with somebody, but a lot of people don't realize that your inability to fall asleep, or your insomnia, or your waking up in the middle of the night, your sort of interrupted sleep patterns have quite a lot to do with the other things that you've done during the day. It's not just, I can't sleep and sleep's the problem. It's like, well, actually, it could have been that cup of coffee you had at 4:00. It could be the fact that you got into bed an hour before you intended to and watched your iPad. It could be that you decided to go through your to-do list for the next day mentally as you switched off the light. It could be that you've sat at your desk all day and you haven't moved your body. It could be the processed food that you've eaten during the day. It could be a couple of glasses of wine that you had as you cooked dinner. There are lots of things that or the blue light on your screen. There are so many things that people do during the day that they don't realize are impacting their sleep.
So when would you recommend that people shut down their screens before sleep?
Look, ideally, an hour and a half or 2 hours before bed. I recognize that that's a really hard ask for a lot of people.
What am I going to do with those 2 hours? Read a book?
Have a bath? Yeah.
Do some self-care.
Exactly.
Actually.
Yeah. Read a book, have a bath.
Talk to your
talk
family.
to people. Yeah. Yeah.
You get really creative. Play a board game.
Yes.
Or maybe do some, make some cookies, but don't eat them if there's sugar in them. Make some cookies and then freeze them for late next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be good with our sleep and make sure that we shut down our screens and do some, calming. I find that if I listen to some calming meditation music, so not like a guided meditation, but if I listen to some music for 20 minutes before bed, or if I lie in bed and put it on, that helps me get to sleep much quicker. And then I wake up feeling much more refreshed.
Great. Yeah.
That's what I find works for me.
That works for a lot of people. So it's that first 5 hours after you've fallen asleep that are the deep sleep that you get. That's the best quality sleep that you get. So the quicker you can fall asleep, the better.
What are your thoughts on when you sleep, or the number of hours you get before midnight? Because I've heard some people say it counts for more if you're in bed before midnight.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about the science behind that.
Okay.
I think it's definitely a good idea to go to bed well before midnight.
Yeah.
Just getting that. Not a lot of good things are happening past midnight. There's no reason why you should be awake past midnight, really. I mean, unless it's a rocking Saturday night, I guess. But,
yeah, of course. Yeah. And it's night never ends, basically.
I know, I sound so boring now. No sugar, no alcohol, go to bed before midnight.
But rager on the weekends, and that's fine.
80-20 rule. 80-20 rule. And that brings
80-20.
Yeah, well, that's a real part of the program as well. And looking at self-care, not having these absolutes, saying you should do this and, you should always be like this. It's like, well, you've got to enjoy life too. I mean, eat, yes, have sugar, but don't have it every single day.
So I know that self-care is one of the other components that you teach people.
Yes.
Right. So can we dive into that a little bit, because I think that's so important that many people don't do enough of. How do you define self-care?
So self-care is, for us, it's about taking care of yourself. It's about making sure that you do those things that you need to do. And self-care, I think a lot of people think of it as going for a massage or, getting a pedicure. So it's more than that. Yeah. So self-care is time for self-reflection. It's time to really understand who you are, to ask yourself questions like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What are my values? What does success look like to me? So understanding yourself, personal growth, I think that is self-care.
And why is that important for helping us to overcome anxiety?
Well, because if you can live a life true to your values and true to your purpose, and you know what success really is to you, then it immediately takes away a lot of the other stress. If you know who you are, then you don't have to live your life by what other people think or what society thinks. You can live a life according to your values, and it immediately makes for a happier, calmer person. And all those other things like exercising and meditating, they all fall into place once you know who you are and you love yourself and you give yourself that space to breathe.
When did you start doing that for yourself?
I think I'm still doing that. Like it's, I started maybe 7 years ago now.
Yep.
But I think that it's a journey that doesn't end. You have to keep reminding. It's crazy that I have to keep reminding myself to make time for myself, and I have to keep reminding myself to love myself. I think it's a little bit sad in a way that that's not something that comes naturally. But I don't think it does come naturally for a lot of people. Some people are super confident, and maybe they've had a different life experiences, and they don't find that very hard. I know my husband, for example, is just a really happy guy.
Yeah.
Loves himself, loves
Mine
everybody
too.
else, and it's nice and easy. And maybe it's a male thing. I think a lot of women find that a little bit harder. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she is fantastic. I mean, she's got the biggest smile on her face the whole time. Everybody loves her. She's got an adoring husband, great kids. She's got her own successful business. And we were talking about this topic of self-love and self-care. And she said, I'm just not there yet. She said, I can't say to myself, I love myself. And that really blew me away, because to look at her, you think she has everything and she's so confident, but inside she's not. And I think that's something that we all need to develop, because if we can love ourselves, everything else in life falls into place.
Absolutely. And that's when we start to attract great people into our
Yeah.
lives as well. I totally resonate with that. And that's something that my husband has gone through as well. Aaron, he told me that once he started doing things for himself and learning to love himself and going, you know what, I don't need anyone else's, I don't crave for anyone else's love, because I love me as I
Yeah.
am. And he says that that's what brought us together. Because
That's
I was
beautiful.
also in that place, and we were both in a place where we didn't need a relationship. We didn't need anyone to complete us. But we both loved ourselves and found each other, and we happened to enhance each other's lives, with more love. So
That's a great way to start a relationship, isn't it? I mean,
I think so.
when you're two people who don't need each other and you can just come together, it's beautiful.
I think women especially tend to want to support and nurture others first. And I meet a lot of people who, I had one woman, we're going to start working together with one-on-one coaching. And I said, is there anything else that I could help you with? Like, what else is it that you would like to work on? And she says, my organization. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? And she said, I just find myself like I have so much to do all the time. I can't seem to organize my week. I'd really like some help, organizing my week and my days and my tasks. I'm like, okay. I said, do you happen to find it very difficult to say no to people? And she goes, yes, all the time. I'm constantly saying yes to people. I'm like, okay. So maybe it's not an organizational issue. Maybe it's the fact that you are putting other people first and not you first. Is that something that you find with the people that you work with?
Yeah, and that's that's what we start off talking about week 1, actually.
All right, okay.
It's about finding that time for yourself and learning to say no, or trying it out. As women, we find it really hard to say no. We tend to be people pleasers as a general rule. So once you learn how to say no, and often, we should be better at saying no, because really, what is it that people are asking us? They're asking us for a piece of our time, for a piece of our life, which we're not valuing if we're just giving it away to whoever at any time. Saying no is a way of saying, look, my time is important, and what I want is important as well.
There's a saying that goes, I can't remember who said it, but it's when you say no to someone else, you're saying yes to yourself.
Ah, that's lovely.
And it works opposite. Every time you say yes to someone else, you're saying no to yourself.
Yeah.
That could be construed that way. Awesome. Was there any other element that we missed?
No.
No?
That's
So-
the 5 pillars.
The 5 pillars. Love it.
Exercise, nutrition, meditation, self-care, and sleep.
So for someone who is thinking right now, okay, I think I've got some anxiety, I've got maybe the stomach churns, or I'm finding it hard to sleep. What is the first step that someone can do to get them started on this journey?
The first thing would be to pick something that you think, if they think that they've got anxiety, say they've taken the test, they know that they've got anxiety. Really, it's about starting to look at your life and working out what you can put in place to help. So, If exercise is your thing, maybe start with a bit of exercise, try and get that regular, or meditation, just 10 minutes a day. You can see the effects in 10 minutes, a day for 7 days, 7 to 10 days. You're already seeing the benefits of that. Definitely putting time aside for yourself, trying to maybe, read some self-development books, personal growth books. They're great for helping people to discover who they are.
Can you recommend one? What's one of your favorites?
Oh, I am reading at the moment Reinventing Your Life.
Ooh, okay. Who's that by?
I forget. It's I'll tell you later.
Okay,
you can
sure.
put it in the show notes.
Sure.
But it's great. They talk about life traps and all the different life traps. So one of the life traps is unrelenting standards. That's my biggest life trap, which basically means I'm a perfectionist. And it talks about how when you've got unrelenting standards, for example, that you tend to expect far too much of yourself and other people around you, and you're constantly disappointed, and you can never relax. You can't enjoy life. You can't enjoy any achievements because you're always on to the next thing.
Yes.
So it talks about the different life traps. I think there are like 7 or 8 life traps that they talk about. There's that, and then there's catastrophizing and all or nothing thinking. So It's a great book.
Awesome. Okay. Well, look, Sam, this has been so amazing talking with you, and I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and your beautiful energy with everyone. Can you tell us a bit more about the Nurture Project and the programs that you run?
The Nurture Project is a 12-week online program for women, and we help women to learn the life skills they need to defeat anxiety for good. And those life skills are those pillars that we spoke about earlier: exercise, nutrition, meditation, self-care, and sleep. We ran a pilot program last year, and where medication has between a 25 and 30% remission rate, we achieved an 80% remission rate from our pilot. So at the moment, we're just getting the first few hundred people through the program. And then we're going to go ahead and publish our research paper so that we can prove our 80% remission and go from there. So that's where we are at the moment.
Fantastic. And so who can join?
So at the moment, we're looking for women between the ages of 35 plus, really. We're getting quite a lot of interest actually from women over the age of 65 as well, which is fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sam. This has been super wonderful.
Thanks, Christina.
A big thank you to Sam Taylor from the Nurture Project for being such a generous guest on the show this week. I want you to have a think about, out of those areas that she mentioned, think about what's one thing that you can start to implement to help you to feel more calm, more centered, more balanced, and to reduce the anxiety that you experience. You can learn more about Sam at thenurtureproject.com. I'll also link up to her website and the other resources that we mentioned in the show notes at thecmethod.com/238. Now, if you found this episode valuable, then I would love if you could share it with someone who you think is also going through this, or if you know someone who, uses language like, oh, I'm so anxious, or I feel so stressed all the time, or, if they feel a bit overwhelmed, then share this episode with them. And, it might help them to see that they are, to go back to that metaphor of, maybe they are the frog in the water that's slowly boiling and they don't realize that they are going through some anxiety. So share it with them and help us to get this message out. All right, well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Keep on being awesome, and I will talk to you next week. I'm Christina Canters, and this has been Stand Out, Get Noticed.